Will Donald Trump's plan for Gaza work? The US president has presented a proposal to end Israel's war on the Strip, and he secured firm support from regional leaders. But what about the two main players, Hamas and Israel? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Bernard Smith. A 21-point peace plan to end Israel's war on Gaza. That's what US President Donald Trump has proposed to Arab and Muslim leaders. He met them as world leaders gathered in New York for the 80th UN General Assembly. The scheme reportedly would bar Hamas from any future role in governing Gaza. There'd be potential military involvement from Arab and Muslim countries to guarantee security. And it comes with a promise from President Trump that Israel will not annex the occupied West Bank. So far, there's been a positive response from leaders involved in the meeting, including Turkey and also Egypt. It's played a key role in mediation. But how can the countries involved deliver on their part in any deal? And how could President Trump push his plan through in practice? We'll put these questions to our guest, but first, this report from Amma Boateng.
Thank you very much for hosting such an important meeting at such an important time.
A diplomatic push to end Israel's war on Gaza.
You did a great job. Thank you very much.
US President Donald Trump hosted leaders from 8 Arab and Muslim countries, including Qatar, Turkey and Egypt, on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York.
We had a very good meeting concerning Gaza. It was a very successful meeting with all of the big players, except for Israel, but that's going to be next, and I think we can work something out on Gaza. But it was a very good meeting with great leaders.
And we had
Later, Trump's Mideast envoy, Steve Witkoff, gave more detail.
We presented what we call the Trump 21-point plan for peace in the Mideast in Gaza. I think it addresses Israeli concerns and as well the concerns of all the neighbors in the region. And we're hopeful and I might say even confident that in the coming days we'll be able to announce some sort of breakthrough.
Trump's plan reportedly includes calls for the release of all captives, a permanent ceasefire, governance of Gaza without Hamas, Arab and Muslim countries to agree to send military forces to Gaza to enable Israel's withdrawal and to secure funding for rebuilding, and a pledge to prevent Israel from annexing the occupied West Bank. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was positive about the meeting. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi also supported Trump's plan. More than 65,000 Palestinians have been killed during the past 23 months of Israel's war on Gaza. That's as the Israeli government has continued its expansion of illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. World leaders at the UN General Assembly have condemned Israel's actions in Gaza. The US, Qatar and Egypt have all been heavily involved in previous talks to broker a ceasefire. With these talks finalized, Arab and Muslim leaders are now looking ahead to the outcome of President Trump's planned meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington on Monday. Amma Boateng, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
So joining us from Washington, D.C. is Thomas Warwick, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Counter-Terrorism Policy at the US Department of Homeland Security and currently a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. From Amman, we're joined by Daoud Kuteb, a journalist and columnist, director of the Community Media Network and a contributing writer to outlets including Al Monitor and Foreign Policy. And from Doha, Faisal Abdulhamid Al-Mudka, editor-in-chief of the Gulf Times and a Qatari journalist and commentator specialising in public diplomacy and communications. A warm welcome to you all. Faisal, I'll start with you, if I may. It seems that Trump's plan got a warm welcome from the Arab and Muslim leaders that he met. Will that make a difference on whether this plan works where all others seem to have failed?
Well, I think the plan will work if there is a will and there is an umbrella for security to execute. Because based on the experience that we have seen from Netanyahu, that he never commit on any plan, or he never commit even on sign agreement. So, personally, I think it needs a security umbrella from maybe the Security Council for the execution. We don't want a part of the plan is to have some troop internationally, Arab Muslims, and then we don't want another, a reckless move from Netanyahu to bomb them for not going by the law or whatever. So it's really a risk. We've been mediating for a long time, and for 2 years saved a lot of life, and then we get to be pushed to be from the mediator as a part of the conflict. So answering your question is a shaky position.
All right. Daoud, do you think this plan might have a chance?
Well, as the editor of the Gulf Times said, it requires a serious will. What we've seen in the last few months was the absence of a U.S. will, and the trustworthiness of America has been destroyed when the Israelis bombed negotiators, when they killed negotiators who were actually studying an American plan. So there's a problem here with trustworthiness, and I think the Americans have a big wall to climb up on, because they have lost a lot of trustworthiness in the region. So if the Americans are serious, and if they're willing to put pressure on Netanyahu to carry what he says he will carry, then it might have a chance. But, there's a lot of problems in the details. When Israel says they would gradually withdraw from Gaza, the word gradual is a very loose word. It could take years for the gradual withdrawal, and that's scary.
All right, Thomas, I'll let you respond directly to the what you will have heard already before, the nervousness about trusting any plan that comes from Trump and Witkoff. But what do you believe, having spent a lot of time working on this, do you think are the core components of this post-war Gaza plan that Witkoff has presented?
Well, greetings to you and to your viewers. So this plan calls for a transitional international governance for Gaza. This is consistent with plans that were developed in think tanks starting in early 2024, and the United Arab Emirates plan from July of 2024. And obviously, it's been updated for more recent developments. Hamas is considerably weaker than it was almost 2 years ago. It is considerably less popular in Gaza. And there are parts of Gaza that are under the control right now of the Israeli army or tribal elements who are opposed to Hamas. So there is territory that this international governance authority can start reconstruction. The IDF can leave those areas, even while fighting continues in other parts of Gaza. The idea is you start reconstruction, you show there is hope for the future, and more Gazans will opt for that outcome rather than the continued suffering of war.
Thomas, but who leads this international group in Gaza? Is it something like the GHF at the moment, or is it led by Arab states? Who's in charge of it?
I would call this Bosnia done right. There was an international authority in Bosnia after the end of that civil war that has imperfectly, but it's kept Bosnia from falling back into civil war since 1996. What this would mean is that the Palestinian Authority would invite in this international body. They would seek a one-time only United Nations Security Council resolution under Chapter 7 authority to give it mandatory powers, but no permanent UN role. And then it would be overseen by an international board of governments, including the United States, Arab countries, Israel presumably, and others would all have a seat at the table. And they would be overseeing the international governance and reconstruction of Gaza that would be carried out by a separate governing entity.
And very quickly, Thomas, not the Palestinian Authority then?
Not directly. There is clearly going to be a connection to the Palestinian Authority. Everyone assumes that there will be many Palestinians involved in this process, and many of them will have allegiance to the Palestinian Authority or have served in the Palestinian Authority, but it won't officially be the Palestinian Authority.
Dawood, can you see something like that working?
Well, I think the missing link in all of this is what Hamas thinks, because if there's no buy-in from Hamas, and if the Israelis are withdrawing from some areas, there will be full fighting in other areas, that will not work. Hamas says, and I think everybody believes, there has to be an end of the war. There cannot be fighting at the same time that there's rebuilding. So I'm sorry, the idea of fighting in one place and building another place under the Israeli control is like feeding people with the Israeli U.S. evangelical Christian Zionist guys, and they were bringing all the people down there, and people were shot and killed. There has to be an end of the war. There has to be Israeli withdrawal, and that requires a buy-in from Hamas, and I don't see that at the present time.
Faisal, Dawood mentions this Hamas buy-in. It's Qatar and the Egyptians that appear to have most of the leverage over Hamas. What could they do to persuade Hamas to accept this deal if the Qataris and the Egyptians and the rest of the Arab world want them to?
Well, the main objection of Qatar as a mediator is to stop this war. Whatever Hamas to be a part of the new thing or to withdraw, whatever, it's up to Hamas. They are the fighter. Qatar is more as the mediator on that. That's the whole issue, is that Israel and other parties thinks that Qatar has the biggest leverage on Hamas, and our position is a mediator as the state of Qatar. So there is always a two mix on that. I think it's to immediately to stop the suffer of the Gaza, entering the aid, and then even releasing the hostage, and then things that happen. But it seems that a lot of politicians on the table, and it's a power game. While we are talking, the border of Israel and Jordan is shut down. West Bank is trying to change the fact on the ground, and also in Jerusalem. So really, we from one opportunity to the other, we see that a dialogue or a talk or a peace on the table is always being used to delay and more suffering on the ground. So if you ask me about Hamas, I really don't know. But what we've been trying to do and what Qatar has been successful to do is to have two ceasefire. And really, both of them has to be more realistic on what is happening on the ground, because what we see in TV, this is really unacceptable, and it's even worse than the Holocaust. I mean, I don't know how people even have the gut to talk about.
All right. Thomas, we're all aware of the extraordinary human toll this is taking on Palestinians in Gaza, the prolonging of this war. You've written that Israel must be allowed to finish the job of militarily defeating Hamas. If that were even possible, it will exact an incredible cost in human lives, won't it, for all the innocent Palestinians that are killed whilst Israel goes after the remaining Hamas fighters?
Well, and this is why Hamas's leadership needs to reassess the wisdom of its continuing to bring about more suffering for the people of Gaza. Currently, the IDF controls approximately half of the territory of Gaza, and so there are substantial areas where this international governance authority could begin reconstruction. It could significantly increase the amount of humanitarian aid that is distributed. And it will have a different ability than the private agencies that have been providing aid to negotiate with both Egypt and Israel for how this aid is brought in and inspected. The assumption as well is that the United States' leadership is going to have more influence over how Israel conducts some of these day-to-day inspection protocols that have held up aid in the past. But the idea really is that you cannot let the idea that every part of Gaza must be quiet and Hamas must be gone from every part of Gaza before you do anything for the 2 million people of Gaza. You have 2 million Gazans. You have Hamas fighters that number somewhere between 10 and 20,000. And while they may be able to intimidate the people of Gaza, they're going to have trouble against a well-armed force of international peacekeepers. And that will be enough to allow reconstruction to begin in parts of Gaza. It would be a moral failing if we said we're not going to do anything until the most recalcitrant Hamas fighters lay down their arms. I think it's imperative that the international community start right now in the parts of Gaza that it could operate in. And frankly, that will show there is hope and there is reconstruction in Gaza's future. But it will be without Hamas.
Excuse me, thank you. Okay. Dawood, if, as you've suggested before, it would be hard to get Hamas buy-in on a project like this, then the argument that Thomas makes about allowing Israel to carry on trying to destroy Hamas militarily will be the one that becomes the dominant argument, isn't it?
Well, also you have the problem of the demand that all the hostages are released before this project begins, and that's also going to be a problem. Nobody will agree. I mean, nobody in Hamas will accept this idea that they would have to give up all the hostages and still wait to see what happens. This is a problem that will cause a delay or maybe a failure of this plan. There has to be agreement to end the war.
What do you say to that, Faisal?
Well, you know what's worrying me? That it is not only the government who wants to... When you follow the demonstration of the hostages, you see that they are even nothing to have. They don't have any sympathy on the civilians on Gaza. What they have is just what is left to bomb in Gaza, what is left to continue the war in Gaza, which is really worrying me because that's the mass of the people inside Israel. And to tell you the truth, that everybody is in the mood of war. So I totally, personally, I believe on stopping the war because everybody in the mood of war, ceasefire. It's been 2 years. People are even, if you see, people are fed up even from the Israeli army. You have people they don't want to go to the field. It's really, when we talk about Hamas, it's like we're talking about an organized army. What is left after 2 years? We've seen it on TV, 60,000 children and women. I mean, it's really a shame on also politicians sitting in the table talking, let's continue the war and restructure the other side. Okay. I mean, and you see leaders in the United Nations only talking about the hostage. This is a real genocide. Journalist, colleague of me and you have been killed. Yes. It's the worst war that human people have seen in TV life. So I really don't see this. I have seen a ceasefire and a breaking in 2 days.
Okay.
This is not Lebanon civil war. It's not a civil war.
All right. Thomas, in terms back again to the component of what this force taking over Gaza in stages, as you suggest, would comprise of, Israel, obviously Israel is going to have to agree to it. Do you think they would accept troops from the Arab world, from the Gulf, in Gaza, trying to maintain the peace there?
This is one of the points that they're going to start discussing between Trump and Netanyahu on Monday. My guess is that they will have interest in troops from some countries, but not from others. I also think we're going to end up with U.S. military leadership over this force. A respected general like Eric Kurilla could be put in charge of the military aspect of it. A respected figure. Yes. Well, running it from outside, generals lead from behind the front lines in every military campaign, peaceful or violent. And then you'll have an international figure like Sir Tony Blair as the leader of the civilian part of the civilian authority. But I also think we're going to end up seeing European, Canadian, Australian, and other countries providing peacekeepers as well. The ultimate size of the peacekeeping force is going to be considerably larger, I suspect, than the number of Hamas fighters who have still survived so far, because the idea is that Hamas is going to have to think twice about taking on a sizable international force where Arab leaders are telling them, you must lay down your weapons.
Daoud, it would have to be an extraordinarily considerable sized force of troops on the ground in Gaza, mainly from the Arab world, we understand. Do you really think that could work?
I'm not sure it could work, but, I have, hearing your friend from Washington, maybe we can have some international troops also on the West Bank. That would make it easier to swallow. If we're willing to allow international troops into Gaza, then let's have also international troops replacing the Israeli army in Jenin or Nablus. And then, we'll be talking about a transitional of the Palestinian state. That would make sense. But right now, Hamas has to be involved and it has to be negotiated with, and they have to have a buy-in. I don't think Arab leaders or Arab countries, and to be honest with you, I don't think any international countries will go into Gaza unless there is a Hamas buy-in. So I think you have to think of how you could get Hamas involved. I think the demonization of Mahmoud Abbas is a terrible idea, that they could have had a much better argument if the Palestinian government was much more involved. And I think with Hamas, I think you need to understand much more their thinking and their fear that if they give up all the hostages, then they will be all killed. I mean, and in fact, Trump said that. So the idea of going head to head with Hamas, I don't think is a smart idea.
OK, and just out on the occupied West Bank, we know that Trump promised Arab and Muslim leaders that he wouldn't allow Israel to annex the occupied West Bank. That we've moved on very quickly from suddenly a two-state solution to promising not to annex the occupied West Bank. But does that give you some encouragement?
I think the annexation idea is just a scare tactic. Israel already controls all of the West Bank. They've annexed East Jerusalem, they've annexed the Golan Heights, they can keep annexing whatever they want. I think as long as there are Israeli troops in the occupied territories, that's a problem, whether it's in Gaza or in the West Bank. And I think the entry of international troops with the acquiescence of the Palestinian leadership, whether it's in Ramallah or whether it's Hamas, I think that's the right gradual steps that we need to have a Palestinian state safe and democratic alongside of the state of Israel.
Faisal, we seem to be stuck on this idea that either Hamas buys in or Israel is allowed to continually to go after Hamas militarily while other parts of the Gaza Strip are secured. Help us try and understand how Hamas might be thinking. Daoud's hinted at it. At what stage does Hamas get to that it buys into this project?
Well, I don't know what Hamas thinks, but what I think personally is we have a UN resolution. We have a body that, and we have more than 150 countries, except the US, have accepted a two-state solution. If we see a roadmap, both sides, the Palestinian, the Israelis, at least the logic Israelis and the modern Palestinians will go through it. But it seems that who dropped the weapon first, and there is a mess of trust. I don't know, but personally, I think the United States should listen to what has been said to President Trump in that meeting on the head of the Muslim coalition. The anger is in the whole Arab world and Muslim. This is 1.5 billion people has been watching their people dying in live station. This is what really matters for us right now. So, and I think the state should see very closely to listen from Qatar, to listen from Saudi, to listen. We are a peaceful country. We have not. This has to end. I mean, Israel became a liability even for the state. You see demonstration, you see even the House of Representatives, there is a resolution of, I don't know if it's that effective, but
yes,
of cutting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, Thomas, yes, on that roadmap that Faisal mentioned, you know that the Arab states would ultimately want to see a roadmap towards eventually a Palestinian state. Netanyahu has made it pretty much his political career has said he will stop the creation of a Palestinian state. How do you get trust for the Witkoff and Trump plan in the Middle East when they know that that Netanyahu's never going to allow the creation of a Palestinian state?
Well, that's why an international transitional authority is so important. If this mission succeeds, it will broaden the prospects for what will come afterwards. But there is, even apart from Netanyahu, the Israeli public is not in any mood to agree to a Palestinian state right now. Overwhelmingly, Israelis oppose this. Yeah. The key is whether Hamas can be removed from governance in Gaza. And one of the things that was recognized in the Blair plan is you need both physical and social reconstruction of Gaza, given the extent of the destruction. I think if this is allowed to proceed for several years, by then there will have been elections in Israel. There may have been elections in the West Bank, who knows? But the expectation is that a very different Gaza, willing to live in peace side by side with the state of Israel, is going to see very different prospects than what we look at today.
Gentlemen, we are unfortunately out of time, but thank you to you all, to Thomas Warwick, to Daoud Kuteb and Faisal Abdul Hamid Al-Mudaka, and thank you for watching. You can see the programme again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on X. We are at AJ Inside Story. From me, Bernard Smith, and the whole team here, bye for now.